On this episode, new year, pace, and the 1% work ethic. All right, hey everybody. This is the quarter show. We have a couple things to talk about, and this is show 100. Yeah, very happy about that. So, pretty cool. It takes a lot to actually put it all together. Thank you very much for watching. We really appreciate it. And it's fun to see the subscribers go up and the views go up and things like that. And you know, we're constantly working to make the content better and come up with things that quite frankly help our own team and help our own sales team, but also, you know, are valuable to you. So we're always open to ideas, and if you know, if you want to leave them in the comments and you have questions or things you want us to address, let us know. But we're going to keep going. Our initial goal when we first started the show was to get to 100 and kind of see where we stand, and here we are. So and it's been growing, and we've been getting really great feedback. So we'll keep it coming going into 2017. So happy 2017. A couple things I want to go over sort of to kick off the 100 show. We want to talk about three things: goals and targets for this year, pace, and the 1% work ethic. You know, which I'll get into. But you know, starting with goals, it's like every single year. You know, a lot of people, obviously you have your New Year's resolution and things like this, and I personally don't necessarily do the New Year resolution thing. I do write goals for the year, but I do them for my birthday. Every birthday I write my goals for birthday to birthday for some reason. It just means more to me, and I do that. But going into the new year, I cannot tell you how many people I've come across that don't write their goals. I'm always amazed. And I was watching something recently, and I don't really follow Jim Rohn, but I was watching something recently because somebody brought up Jim Rohn, and I thought I would look into his stuff, and he's got great reviews and people love him. You know, but he dropped a stat or something to the effect that he said that people who just write their goals, their income increased by something like 3 times or 4 times just by writing their goals. And I cannot tell you in my life, I've been writing my goals for 20 plus years. It's native. I just do it. You know, I just write down things I want to do. But I come across people from time to time that don't write their goals. They don't have them written down. And for me, that is now pretty much an alien concept or a foreign concept. I can't imagine not writing my goals, but I know there's people out there that don't do it. You know, and if you don't, and if you're one of those people, I will tell you this: every successful person that you meet, you can go and ask them. Every single successful person, I can assure you, they write their goals. They do write their goals. They write them down. They don't just think about their goals, they write them down. And they hold themselves accountable to them. And if you're not doing it, you need to start doing it right now. And that means right this second. Like, make sure, if you haven't done it already, you need to write your goals for 2017. What are you going to do? What are you going to accomplish? You know, what does it look like? You know, and if you were to fast forward right now to December 2017, write down, think about it for a second. What is it going to look like in December 17, 12 months from now? Where are you at? What have you accomplished? What have you done? Write that down. Write that vision down. And write down all the things that are associated with it. Like, what are you, in your life, in your professional life, in your business, write those things down. Like, what are you going to do? And then look at it throughout the year. Look at it bi-weekly, monthly, weekly, daily. You know, the more you look at it, the more you put it into the physical universe, the more real it's going to get, and the more you're going to get those things accomplished, right? Because if you fail to write it down, and then you don't look at it, and then you don't hold yourself accountable, you're not going to hit it. It's like that old adage, right? People don't plan to fail; they fail to plan. You know, and so you've got to write down those goals.
The thing is, like, a lot of if you cut this back, this cuts back to something simpler. You have to make your game plan orderly. You have to put order in. Every time you write down, this is only my partly written down lineup for today. You write down your lineup. You write down what you're going to do today. You write down what you're going to do for the week, and you track and you measure everything, and you create orderliness. Now there's a lot of to a degree, there's sort of this admiration of someone who's just like they live in a whirlwind, and there's this chaos around them, and whatever, and oh my gosh, they pulled off a miracle or this and that and the other thing, and that's not how really successful people work.
No,
they don't. Successful people work very fast, but truly successful people, their successful action is not chaos. So you want to create order. You want to make your mind orderly. You want to make your environment orderly. Mm-hmm. You see people driving around and they got like trash piled up in their cars and stuff like that, or you go over to their house and it's just like dispersed and everywhere. That's not the successful part of them. I'm not saying you won't meet someone successful who has a disorderliness in their environment. I'm saying that's not part of the success. So you write these things down, right? And people, and look, before getting into sales and before working here, I had no sense that I could accomplish anything outside of what I was doing on a day-to-day basis. Like none. No concept of it at all. So writing down goals was completely foreign to me because I knew that I was going to be in the same place next year. It made no difference. It made no difference at all. I was just going to wind up in the same place. I could write it down all I wanted. I would like 2 jet skis and I'd like to go to Mexico, and it would never happen.
But now he's improved every single year. He's a $1 million producer here, and consistently improved every single year, consistently gotten better, one of the top performers in the entire company, and it just goes to show you that like there is a pattern to success. There are things that when you do them, there's a formula. There's a formula to everything, right? There's a formula to making a cup of coffee. There's a formula to certain things, and there's a recipe. And I think a lot of people want to believe it's mystical or it's something else, but it's not. And if you look at any successful person, you start seeing these patterns, and the truth is they all do it in greater or lesser degree, and sometimes their own ways, but it's all there, And these things lead to winning, which takes you into the next thing. It's like, what is your target? You have your goals. You got to write down your goals. You have your vision. You want to write down a vision. Like, what are you trying to do? Where are you going to be 12 months from now? Then you write down all the goals associated. Now you look at your target. Like, what is your target? What is your target for the month, for the quarter, for the year? What is your target? Write that down. I asked my team. I asked them this morning. I asked them at the beginning of the year. What's your target? What are you going to do this year? Oh, I'm going to do 3 million. Okay, you're going to do 3 million. Well, what does that mean? How much do you have to do weekly? How much do you have to do monthly? How much do you have to do quarterly?
Is that what Devin said?
Right.
Okay, all right.
But I think more than that.
I bet.
But you get the idea. What is your target? If you don't have a target, what are you aiming for?
Yeah.
Right. You can shoot anywhere and hit it. It's like, have a target. What is your target? What are you going after?
And the pansy won't write it down.
Yeah.
The person who's
exactly.
afraid won't write it down.
If you're afraid, you're not going to write it down at all.
Write it down.
Right. Well, what is your target? Because now it pulls you into putting some accountability on it and actually having a number. You go, okay, we're going to do this. I do that for Richter. I do that as a company, as the CEO, I do that for Richter. But I force my people to put that in personally in terms of having a target weekly, having a target daily, having a target monthly, having a target quarterly and for the year. You don't have a target. You have nothing to aim at.
My target this last year was to be up 33% from year before. Mm-hmm. And I did not make my target. I made 28%, which was much higher of a jump than I had ever made before.
Yeah.
So the jump was very good, and like the results were all around and very, very nice. But that's why you write it down. 33% increase was a lot. It was a lot for the game I have and how I go about it and stuff like that. And so it sort of pushed hard on what I was gonna get done and capable of doing. It wasn't so insane that I was like, I'm going to double everything that I do or something like that, which now this year might be actually, that's probably possible to double with what we have set up. But the point being, you want to set something that really pushes your limits, that's real enough that you really have to push yourself to get there.
And that you decide on. The power of decision is insanely
comes first.
Magical, right? You write the target and it gives you a decision, which is, look, call it mysticism, call it whatever the heck you want. It's insanely magical when you decide on something and you cut out any wiffle waffle or any maybes or whatever you want to call it. When you decide on something, I'm going to go do this. It's incredibly powerful. But if you don't decide on anything, you're going to, it's like that thing. It's like you don't know what path you're taking. Any path will get you there. Right?
You're fooling yourself. Yeah. And this has happened probably to every person watching at some point or other in their lives where they go, You don't measure what you're doing. You don't write anything down, and you conclude that you've done more than you actually have. And this can be in any area of life where you're like, well, I must by now. I probably have accumulated blah, or I've done like all my chores, or I've probably done this much, or it's been we've been digging this ditch for 3 hours and it's been a half hour, right? Unless you write it down, monitor it, clock it, watch it, you have no clue, and you're fooling yourself.
You really are. Which takes us into the next point, which is pace, okay? So pace is a big one. Now, I've been running for years. I did track and field growing up. I don't know, running seems very native to me, running basically most of my life. And nowadays, when I run, it's like pace. I look at my watch, I look at pace. The thing I obsess over is pace all the time. And I know that if I'm running a 6.5 minute mile or a 7 minute mile or whatever, I know how long the run's going to take. I know where I'm going to end up, and I'm always obsessed on pace. So I somehow incorporate that into the company all the time. I'm always looking at pace. Where's the company? I manage the entire company on pace. I look at the pace for the month, pace for the quarter, pace for the year, and I can almost tell you to the dollar where we're going to end up for the entire year 4 months before the year's out, because I know the exact pace. I have this spreadsheet, this leaderboard that I created, and I can predict based off pace, right? And you should too. And you look at the things, if you look at pace, if you start factoring in pace, if you say, well, I'm going to do $1 million this year, and you say, good, what does that break out per month? Well, that means you have to do $83,000 per month. Well, what does that mean per week? Well, that means you need to do approximately $20,000 per week. What does that mean per day? Right? Now, here's the thing with running. If you're running let's say a 3 mile run, you're going for a 3 mile run, and let's say the first mile you do 10 minute, right? And you're like, I'm going to go run 3 miles, and I want to do I want to end up at 7 minute pace, and and the first mile you end up doing 10 minute pace. People, you can't the chances of you making up that pace, so getting down to a 7 minute average pace on mile 2 and 3, are slim to none. There's a really good chance you're not going to hit your target because you were so off on the first mile. And it's the same thing in business. When you look at your pace, people do this all the time. They completely blow it up on the first month or the first quarter, and they're like, I'm going to make it up. You're not going to make it up. You're totally not going to make it up. You don't realize that you not only now have to do pace, you have to do pace plus some. You have to do pace plus much better, and it starts going out of reach, right? So you have to obsess on pace per day. So if you look at it, if you have to do 20,000 per week, for example, what's that per day? It's like minimum, like 4,000 per day. And if you end up doing 0 today, as an example, you do 0 today, that stacks on. Now tomorrow if you do 8 grand. And if you miss that, you got to do whatever, and you start thinking with pace, you start boiling your pace down to per day. You need to pay attention per day to make sure that you're on pace for the week, for the month, and so on and so forth. So when people look at metrics and different things like that, the only reason any of this matters against your target is pace. You need to know what your pace is, because that's the thing that's going to give you the best prediction and give you the estimation of effort to actually pull it off. Whereas people are just like, oh, I'm going to do $1 million this year. Then they don't think about it for the rest of the year. They do it, they're trying to do it or whatever, and then they almost unequivocally miss, right? Because they're just like, oh, I'm just going to do the best I can, and then they end up.
Do the best I can.
Do the best I can and do whatever. But they don't hold the integrity all the way back to pace and run themselves. And if you miss, then you have to double time it to figure out how to drive it and recover that pace, And you want to know that early. You want to know that week to week. And you could be like, well, why or whatever. It's like, because that's
the game you're playing.
That's the game you're playing. Like, you're trying to grow, you're trying to get better, you're trying to push yourself and challenge yourself. And if you are, I would advise that you start obsessing over pace. Understand pace, write down how your pace works, write down your average pace, and try and figure out how you can stay on pace, right? You look at the people who run the Boston Marathon and things like that, they know the pace it takes to win. Right, and that means when they're training, they have to figure out how to do that pace, whether that's a 4 minute mile or 4.5 minute mile or 5 minute, whatever that pace is. There's a pace that equals winning, okay? And they know that all the training they do, everything that they do has to be built around attaining that pace. Pace equals winning.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, when you come out of those starting blocks, when you're with your sales crew or with your marketing programs or whatever you're doing, or when you're running, you can't ever be victim to that lethargy. You can't let yourself go on a slow thing. I did this when I was in high school all the time. I'd spend the first 3 hours of my night telling myself that I had another 2-3 hours to do my homework in. And by the time it came time to actually get my homework done, well, I was a little bit too tired to do my homework.
Yeah.
And so high school was kind of a disaster.
My gosh. People do this in school all the time. You leave a project to the very end.
Yeah, you leave it. I left every single
before.
project.
That's the whole pace thing, right?
It was ridiculous. Even in college where I did quite well, I would do that. I mean, I remember staying up till 4 a.m. multiple times to finish papers that had no business doing that. So the thing is, you got to start out strong. Look, you can go like this. You can't. Here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to be like, if you're going to say, okay, we can still make it up. If you're going to say we can still make it up, your tongue had already better be hanging out. You already better be dripping with sweat and going, okay, we can make it up. But if you sitting there and you're like, okay, Robert, I think we can make it up.
Yeah.
If we just hurry a little bit.
We still got time. We still got time. You don't have time.
You don't.
Time's working against you.
You don't.
Okay?
Yeah.
Get on pace. Hold yourself accountable to pace. Start thinking with the idea of pace. The whole thing will shift. You're going to start, like even per day, you're going to start double timing it every day because you're like, oh my God, pace. When you start bringing pace into the equation, the whole game changes.
Yeah.
And
one little, are we going to get into stats? No, we're going to go to that next thing. I like that next topic, but look, I want to say one last thing. I'm not a stats junkie. I just love stats. And so if you don't measure your stats, if you're like, you don't know what you did last week or last quarter or last month, or you don't have statistics that measure where you've been and where you are now, you have to get that done. It is not tedious. Look, Robert set up a spreadsheet. You can set up a Google Doc. You can do whatever you want. You can write it by hand, but write those numbers down because they're going to tell you about your pace, and you're going to be able to have something to compare it to. It's inspiring. It can be a little scary sometimes, right? When I plug in some numbers where I didn't do as well in a week, and I go, oh my God, next week I'm going to have to do double what I normally am able to do in a week, and I start planning it out. Measure your stats.
We call it, you think about the movie Moneyball, right? And it's like you have to Moneyball it, right?
Yeah.
Like you got to know all the metrics of every player on the field and on the overall game and how you're doing it. And when you know that, it's like I always say, how are you supposed to lose weight if you don't have a scale? Like you don't know. Like you may have. You think you lost lighter. You think you lost 5 pounds, right? You may have gained 5 pounds.
I think I made a bunch of money last week.
You need to know, right? I think we're doing pretty well.
Yeah, we did.
You need to know. You need to know how many calls, how many proposals, what's the total dollar figure out? What are all these different things? Know the metrics. What's the pace? What is the average pace? What's the average sales GI that you're at, right?
Gross income.
When you know all these numbers, we call it money balling. When you know these numbers, every number of all the players on the field and the entire game, it's empowering. You can now see and have a correct assessment, right? And then from there, you don't have to you don't have to be a stat junkie like you said, even though I kind of am. You need to know all of the numbers, in order to know the pace. And that's why I have the Nike Apple running watch or whatever, and the Nike thing. It's like because I need to know sort of the vitals or the metrics connected so I can perform better. Here's the next thing. The 1% work ethic. I answered a question on Quora, and I was talking to Ben actually about this last week. I was saying people were talking about the 1%, and I know it's a hot topic. They talk about 1% money, income earners, blah, blah, blah. But nobody ever really talks about the 1% doing this, or the 1% work ethic, or the 1% hustle that it takes to get there. People always obsess over what they have, like attaining the 1% income. But what they don't realize in the world is that when you dig deeper and you look at the 1%, they're 1% because their work, they're doing work, they're studying, they're reading, they're hustling, they're driving, they're building, their production level, their productivity, all that. It's in the 1%. All the productivity and the hustle is in the 1% of all people, right? The 1% are outworking people to make them 1% on their action. They're taking massive action, and they're doing this is in the 1%, which happens to lead to the money also being in the 1%.
Oh, I can already hear it. No, they got lucky. They have connections. They were born into it. They blah blah.
Look, I'm 600.
BS.
Yeah, I'm 600 books deep. I've read 600 plus books at this point. I studied other people, and I don't pretend to know everything, but I happen to know a lot. And I cannot tell you how many successful people I've met and read about and seen, and I'm telling you right now, it's not luck,
Work.
it's not anything. You can do it. We have people here becoming 1%ers, and it's like from nothing.
From like nothing.
From nothing. And you can outwork it. And I think nobody ever acknowledges this. It's like they just think it was handed to them or whatever. But everybody's so obsessed on the 1% money that what they actually have, and they never pay attention to the 1% doingness or the work ethic. So the thing you need to look at is like, how can you drive your actions? How can you drive your productivity and your work into the 1%? Like if you could look at everybody around you and say, cool, I'm in the top 1%. My work ethic, my hustle or action or whatever, hustle's a big cliche term these days. It's like, if you can take your hustle into the 1%, like the chance of you being a 1%er in terms of earnings, income, is very high, and but it starts with the 1% doing. So everybody's trying to study financial, like, how can I be a 1%er? But they don't talk about like, oh God, so that means I have to work at that level? It's like, yeah, if you work at that level, if you study at that level, if you're doing at that level, at the 1% of all people you meet, your probability and your luck will dramatically increase. And so it's something to think with going into 2017, and you tie all these together and you look at your goals, you look at your targets, you look at your pace, and then combine it with 1% work ethic, right?
Yeah, like for myself, right? So, I didn't before working at Richter and stuff like that. Like I didn't have very much, and like I say, week to week was month to month, and year to year was always just the same thing. It was the same drudgery, and I don't think I made more than 35 grand in a year before Richter and stuff like that. And so, I'm definitely not a dummy. I'm a smart guy, and I can communicate quite well, and I have different abilities and things like that. But that didn't make the difference. That didn't make the difference. It was a little bit of sales. You can do this kind of thing, and I kind of, oh my goodness, right? And that was just I'd never explored anything or figured anything out, or I was a little bit afraid of sales or something like that. But I didn't. So I found out a little something, and then, for a long stretch, and still to this day, I actually work very, very, very long hours. But for a long stretch, I would work Monday through Friday all day, and then I would have dinner, and then I'd work till 11, Monday through Thursday, and then I'd take part of Saturday off, and I'd work all day Sunday, and I did that for months and months and months and months and months. And it was just work. It was just consistent work. And turns out it was fun for me, and it led to a lot of cool success, and things just keep getting better and better and better. But that's to me, and that's to me how you do it. It is this work ethic, And like beforehand, I mean, any particular job I had, I felt was pretty dead end, or my own ethics were out and I didn't produce. I can actually think of a couple of jobs where I could have gone somewhere with it. I could have done something with it, but my own personal ethics and way of going about things wasn't shipshape and wasn't right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that the way to get to a 1% income, the way to get there is a lot of it's all up here and it's all in here. And there's really nowhere else that it really is.
Yeah, like you read Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, which is, he talks about this 10,000 hour rule and how the Beatles, and he talks about Wayne Gretzky and the hockey players. And he makes a heck of a case for putting in 10,000 hours. But the 1% are these kinds of people that attain the 1%. Their work ethic and their doing this is incredible. And they master their craft. They master their craft. And I tell you what, you're not just going to fumble along and master your craft. You master your craft from kind of insane levels of work. And it doesn't always have to be that way, and you can make it all work. I mean, people talk about balance and they talk way too much about balance. It's just life. There's no balance. It's just all part of your life and you just have to build it all in. But these people that you admire, that you look up to, or Richard Branson's or the Beatles or the hockey players, the Wayne Gretzky's, they're all the same. They're all the same. They do all the same formula. It's all the same, and it's not a mystery. And you start looking at it. And you look at the people who make it to the Olympics, and then you look behind the scenes, or then Michael Phelps or whatever. You look behind the scenes, and you look at what they did to get there, and it's all the same. And it doesn't mean you have to be Michael Phelps, but in your profession, in your craft, if you'll just put in a similar level of work, and you'll stay the course, and you'll master your craft, there's a damn good chance that you're going to do very well. That's what we want. That's what this part of the show, and that's what we're trying to do is We want to help people with different information. We want to kind of get our own message out, things that work, things that don't work, talk about it. I'll probably have some guests on the show going into 2016. Probably got to turn this into a
17.
podcast. 2017, my God. 2017.
There we go.
2017, brand new year, got to hit the reset. And all that kind of stuff. Anyway, hope you enjoy the show, and we'll keep them coming. If you have any questions, put them in the comments, okay? All right, thanks.